The fantasy playoffs are almost here, and we're breaking down the Week 12 waiver wire pickups you need to make. I'm Alfredo Brown, joined as always by Dave Kluge. Welcome into the Football Guys Fantasy Football Show. Dave, it seems like this week we've got a lot of players that are the handcuffs that are maybe getting a little more action, or they're going to get a good 1 or 2 week rental here, some wide receivers with some great upside. But I would say there's probably one crown jewel out of all this that we want to look at here as our top player in our waiver wire rankings this week.
We have a little bit of dissension on that. I've got a different top guy than you do, but yeah, I mean, this is the time of year where like it's cuffing season. Like get your rookies, because we know that those guys can be league winners down the stretch, and get your injury away running backs. You know, some of the guys that we're going to talk about on the show today are guys that we have talked about all season long, saying like just stash these guys if you can. I would much rather just like have these guys on my bench so that when the opportunity arises, I can just move them up into my starting lineup than having to go to the waiver wire and bid 70-80% of my remaining fab to get them. So we're going to talk about the obvious names today, but like just a good practice, I think, is to go through depth charts, find who that RB2 is, see if they're available on your waiver wire, and just load up your bench with as many of these guys as you possibly can at this point in the season.
Well, let's get started then. Let's start here with the top player we have in our Week 12 waiver wire rankings. That is so hard to say. Week 12 waiver wire rankings. And
Also, do you have the thing like on Mondays and Tuesdays when you start making content for the next week, you're like shocked every single week? Like, oh my gosh, we're already heading into week 12 because like
it
doesn't
throws me
feel
off.
like we're heading into week. Yeah, like
it
week
throws
12,
me off
that's
because
crazy.
our Monday is always like the Week 11 recap. And then even though it is Week 12 now, and I mix up the weeks all the time.
Feels like the season just started, and like here we are, just a couple weeks out from playoffs.
Time is a flat circle, Dave. It's just a construct made by the government. All right. Top player we have on our Week 12 waiver wire rankings. Tier number 1 is Bashaw Tutin, running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Dave, he's available in 78% of leagues, which feels just kind of crazy. This was a player that I don't know. Everyone was going
list, I was
crazy.
like, why are we talking about Bashaw Tutin? Isn't he in like 90% of leagues rostered? I'm my flabbers are gasted.
Yeah. Check your flabbers. All right. Dude, 78% availability is nuts. And I know that's going to range on various fantasy platforms. We're using Sleeper, and that's usually a sharp fan base that is using that platform. But this was a player that everyone was clamoring to draft. He was a sleeper. He was the guy that people were spending mid-round picks on. And this is the point of drafting a guy like this when you have this handcuff. Yes, they might not be getting all of the work, but that's the point of having a handcuff. And then, especially if it is a talented rookie, you're waiting for them to actually get some sort of play out there on the field. And in this game, finally, this past week, he outcarries ETN 15-12 before his injury. He gets 8 touches in the first half. This wasn't like some sort of, oh, we're leading and we're just going to give this guy the garbage time touches. He got 6 touches in the first quarter, scores the first touchdown of the game. Dave, I think, and we have to check the injury, right? Like we have to wait for whatever the news is there. Bashaw Tutin seems to believe that he's good to go. There are reports and people on Twitter that think, I don't know, it looks like a high ankle. It could be the lowest part of the high ankle. Who knows? But either way, to me, this is a guy that not only continues to have the high handcuff value, but now he's got flex appeal where you can actually start him if he's going to be getting double-digit touches every week.
Yeah, and I think the only concern here is the ankle injury. Like, I don't want to dump a bunch of my fab on a guy who's not going to play over the next few weeks. But again, like this is one of those, again, just shocked. And I like just looked up right now to make sure we didn't make a mistake on the show sheet. I pulled up Sleeper and looked, and yeah, like he's still available in all of these leagues. And he was somebody that like everybody was talking about during the offseason.
How dare you think I made a mistake?
Because it doesn't sound believable. Like this guy, when we were doing like our industry drafts or high stakes drafts or best ball drafts, he was going in like the 7th round. Like this is a guy that people were putting like legitimate draft capital into. And we saw the flashes like multiple times throughout the season. We saw the bursts, we saw the touchdowns, like we saw the breakaway runs. This is a guy that had off the charts athleticism. And that's when people got really excited. He came out of the NFL Combine and just torched it, left the NFL Combine with the highest relative athletic score of any rookie in this draft class. And we talked so much this offseason about looking at what happened last year in Tampa Bay in a Liam Cohen offense, where they drafted this day 3 running back who was able to usurp the role from their inefficient veteran Rashad White, Bucky Irving is obviously the rookie I'm talking about. And you can just see the same blueprint here where Bashal Tutin comes in and takes the job from Travis Etienne. So it
Mhm.
seems like that is happening now. The only pause I have about making him the top waiver wire pickup is the ankle sprain. We hear it all the time. Like guys come out of the game, and they're like, oh, I feel good. Everything's fine. No issues whatsoever. Wake up the next day, it's a little bit stiffer. By the time Wednesday practice rolls around, they can't practice. So we're recording Tuesday. We'll see what happens Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But I do have some concern just seeing the way that his ankle got twisted around that he might miss some time.
Yeah, I mean, his own words after the game was that he's good. He'd be ready to go next week. However, like you said, you can show up on Tuesday, Wednesday, and it's going to feel very different. So we're going to have to pay attention to those reports. If for any reason he does miss time, I think LaQuint Allen becomes like one of those guys that we'd probably just slide into the bottom of the waiver wire here as, someone just to stash, hold on to. He's got some receiving upside, especially as the Jags find themselves in a lot of these 2-minute drills here, Dave. So Bashal Tutin was my number one player, and obviously that's going to depend on the injury. He was your number two player in the waiver wire. Let's go down to the second tier where your number one player is in here, my number two player is in here. So we've got Chris Rodriguez, running back for the Washington Commanders, and then Emmanuel Wilson, running back for the Green Bay Packers. And so I want to go out of order here a little bit and talk about Emmanuel Wilson, because this was your number one waiver wire ad. But I think there's also, like, if we're going to do the asterisk of injury for Bashal Tutin, we have to do the same thing for Emmanuel Wilson. And Josh Jacobs, right now, reports are that he could play this week. But also on the other side of that, Packers medical staff are notoriously cautious where they will make players miss a week or two. Even with Emmanuel Wilson missing a week or two, the reason I ranked him lower than Bashal Tutin, and I don't want to hear your reasoning for it as well, is I don't necessarily want a guy that's going to be a 1 or 2 week rental. I'm going to value Bashal Tutin and Chris Rodriguez higher because they could be guys that I can put in my flex for the rest of the season throughout like the rest of the fantasy playoffs here. So that was the tiebreaker for me with Emmanuel Wilson.
Yeah, and a lot of times, when I am going to the waiver wire, I'm looking for running backs that I can pick up and immediately put in my lineup. And I think Emmanuel Wilson, the Josh Jacobs injury is weird too. I think we need to start there before talking about anything else. I mean, reports are that this is a potential PCL sprain, which is the same injury that we heard Drake London picked up this week, and it's the same injury that Brock Bowers and Ricky Pearsall both suffered earlier in the season. Now, it's one of those injuries that like players can play through, but we see that it really zaps their explosiveness. And it's one like where it isn't a terrible injury. So, I mean, our Adam Hutchinson said it could vary anywhere from like 1 to 6 weeks. These guys can miss based on the severity. We saw that he was quickly ruled out. What we're hearing is like no structural damage. The X-rays came back negative. Like we're hearing all of the good things. But if this is a PCL sprain, it's one of those that like you feel like you can play through and you just can't. So I think like probably not going to see Josh Jacobs this week, but I do think that if you pick up Emmanuel Wilson, it could be more than a 1 week rental. It could be 6 weeks. Like we thought, Brock Bowers played through this injury for 4 weeks, just wasn't good and had to rest up for a month before he could come back. Ricky Pearsall, it took him 6-7 weeks to get back to his pre-injury speeds where he could be activated again. So I think there's a lot of optimism right now around Josh Jacobs. And maybe it's just me, having a lot of Brock Bowers, having a lot of Ricky Pearsall being scorned by this injury earlier in the season. I am hesitant to believe that Josh Jacobs is just going to come back and be his normal self 2 weeks from now.
Well, maybe he's not going to be his normal self, but I do think he comes back, right? If they're saying he could potentially play this, it's just one of those things. Like I also think it comes down to like your game theory of how you're going to play this, right? Like, yes, we could have Josh Jacobs out for 6 weeks. Right now, the Packers are saying they're not putting him on IR. So it kind of comes down to like what
Bowers and Pearsall also didn't go on IR.
I know they didn't.
That's the trickiness of this injury. Yeah,
I know they didn't, but then it also comes down to like these are going to be the top waiver wire ads. So if you want to get a guy like Emmanuel Wilson, you're probably having to spend at this point in the season 50% of your budget at least to go and get a top running back. And so that's where like mentally, do I want to do that where I'm doing the mental gymnastics of let me spend 50% of my fab or more, maybe even 70% of my fab on a guy that I get for maybe 1 week versus a Tutin or Rodriguez who they could be leading their backfield through the rest of the season. So I get what you're saying though, because like right now you do have Emmanuel Wilson as potentially the surefire guy this week, and he just gets you the win, and that's really what you need in fantasy. The tough part here for me is you got Minnesota, Detroit, Chicago, 3 tough run defenses over the next few weeks, and Packers offense, Jordan Love, has looked kind of wonky as of late.
He has. That's an understatement. I don't really know what's going on with Jordan Love right now in this Packers offense, but yeah, it just comes down to what you're looking for. Like if you're
Yep.
completely set up right now, you've already got a playoff spot locked up. Sure, stash Tootin. I think that he is, probably going to be more valuable through the fantasy playoffs. But if you're looking for immediate production right now, you're going to get that from Emmanuel Wilson. Like I just did a first pass on my rankings this morning on Tuesday morning, and Emmanuel Wilson's going to be inside my top 18. I mean, I'm looking at him as like a high end RB2 if Josh Jacobs can't play. So again, it's just kind of what you're looking for. With Chris Rodriguez, I think he's another guy that you can pick up and immediately play as an RB2 or a flex. I do just worry a little bit that the ceiling here is limited because he cedes all of the passing down work to Jeremy McNichols. And it's kind of like a Derrick Henry, but less
It,
talented and not a worse
he, he,
offense.
he does seed a lot of it. I think he got like 2 passes this
Yeah.
last week.
He had one target or one catch, maybe it was
One
two
catch on
targets.
one target, maybe. Yeah, like it's not a lot. I get that.
And if you and the thing, like, I was very aggressive in my Chris Rodriguez rank this week. And like if you look at it, like 16 opportunities, 85 yards, that feels great. But because he doesn't score a touchdown and because he doesn't catch multiple passes, he's really not doing all that much for you in your fantasy lineup. Like you're getting 9 points from him. If he scores a touchdown, it's a completely different story. But I think that's the issue with Chris Rodriguez because he doesn't have the very big play upside. He doesn't have that breakaway speed. He doesn't really have the best pass catching chops either. And then he also is going to, give maybe 20-30% of his work to Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. I think you were the one that made the comp to the Chiefs backfield a couple of weeks ago. This is
Mm-hmm.
like very reminiscent of the Chiefs backfield. And the Commanders are going to score half as many points per game as the Chiefs are. So, I mean, like you're hoping Chris Rodriguez can score a touchdown. I think he's one of those like very safe flex plays, but unless he's scoring multiple touchdowns, I just don't know if there's a ton of upside there.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to like what we're spending our. I mean, let us know in the comments, guys, who you would rather. Let's put a line here. Let's say you're getting one of these running backs for at least 50% of your fab. Who is it that you're going for? Is it Bashal Tutin with his injury and a shared backfield with ETN? Is it Chris Rodriguez with a bye week and a shared backfield with 2 other guys in a bad offense? Is it Emmanuel Wilson with potentially Josh Jacobs out 1 week, maybe more? Their offense hasn't been great. So who are you going to be putting your money on? Dave and I, we have our own opinions here. So why don't you guys be the tiebreaker? Let us know in the comments. And by the way, as always, I want to remind everybody, you have multiple ways you can enjoy this show. First, it's going to be right here on YouTube. So if you're watching, take a sec to like this video, comment down below, like I said, and make sure you're subscribed. We also have the audio version of this podcast available to you right after we finish recording over on Apple and Spotify. So while you're there, leave a review. It's a big help for us. Dave, let's go down to the third tier here where honestly, it's just kind of the same guy. Christian Watson, Luther Burden. I'd say Christian Watson is ahead, obviously, because he has the opportunity here to be the top receiver on his team. That still hasn't quite happened because of Romeo Doubs, but when it comes to just making plays, catching touchdowns, like this is what Christian Watson does, and he can be a top 12 fantasy wide receiver on any given week. More likely just one of those low end fantasy wide receiver 2s, high end wide receiver 3 with some big time touchdown upside. Luther Burden is interesting to me, and I want to continue to get your take on this because we talked about it a little bit yesterday. Luther Burden's interesting because that role continues to grow, but do we think it's going to grow to the point where, hey, he's right up there with Rome Odunze, catching 5-6 passes in a game and making plays, being one of the top receivers in the Bears?
Yeah, I think the path for Burden to get there is going to be tough just because Ramadunze is there, DJ Moore is there, Colson Loveland, Cole Kmet. Of course, we got DeAndre Swift catching balls as well. It is good to see him finally outrunning Olamide Zaccheaus and running more routes than he did and getting more snaps than he did. I think for Burden to really break out, though, we'd probably need to see DJ Moore or Ramadunze miss some time. And that's just the unfortunate reality of it. That being said, Amon-Ra St. Brown, who we saw in this Ben Johnson offense as a rookie, did like nothing for the first 10 weeks of the season. And then TJ Hawkinson got hurt, DeAndre Swift got hurt, and all of a sudden the entire offense focused around Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I think that's kind of what you're doing if you're stashing Burden. You're not hoping. Hope is the wrong word, for lack of a better term, though. Like you're hoping that Odunze or DJ Moore misses some time, and then Luther Burden becomes that kind of plug and play wide receiver too. But I think as long as everybody is healthy there, it's going to be really tough for him to get the volume required.
Yeah, I think he's probably more of like a low end wide receiver 3 with
Yeah.
some sexy upside of maybe he gets a rushing attempt by the goal line or one of those little like pot passes, underneath. Christian Watson, though, is like, he's the guy that we've seen him do it before. But like I said on yesterday's show, that never actually went out because of technical difficulties. So sorry, everybody. But be ready for the Christian Watson experience. You know, you're going to have these games where he's going to catch 4 passes, 2 of them are for touchdowns. And then you're going to have the games where it's going to be 1 catch, 63 yards on a bomb. And that's about it. So just be ready for those. I think these guys belong in the same tier together. And there's another wide receiver we'll talk about later that I think is kind of just like right behind them, nipping on their heels, if I'm going to be honest. And that's actually how you have them ranked as well.
Yeah, and Christian Watson, maybe this is just because I've done this song and dance so many times over the last few years, but like we know the Christian Watson experience. He's on waivers. He has a huge game. You pick him up. You wait to see what's going to happen. He has another big game. And then as soon as you're like, okay, here he goes in the lineup, and then you get like 2 catches for 21 scoreless yards. I mean, that's just, or he leaves the game early with an injury. Like it does feel like it's so hard to predict when these big games come because he's got minimal usage and he can have the touchdown upside and he has the big play upside, but there's a high risk of injury here as we have seen throughout his career. And then just really boom bust tendencies. So I think he's one of those guys, like if you're an underdog in your matchup, like you're projected to lose and he's out on waivers and you want to pick him up and put him in your flex, he gives you really nice upside. And I think like 2 of these guys that are available, let's say you've got an open flex spot. If you're a favorite this week and you just need like a little bit of something, Chris Rodriguez, that's a guy you want to put up and put in your flex spot. If you're an underdog this week and you need that really high ceiling, then I think you go for a guy like Christian Watson.
Yeah. Fab, I know it's going to change based on league and need and all that stuff. I don't think Watson or Burden are 50% and above kind of guys. I think these are probably more of like the
5 to 8.
Okay. I was going to go a little bit higher. I was going to say around the 20% guys to see like, you know, it obviously depends too. Like if you're desperate at wide receiver and you've had enough injuries and players going on IR, whatever it may be, I'm probably leaning more on like the 20% for those guys. Let's go down to the next tier. Tier number 4, where it kind of feels like more of the same. We've already had this same archetype of player. Sean Tucker, running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, available in 71% of leagues, and Jaden Higgins, rookie wide receiver for the Houston Texans, available in 80% of leagues. And when I say that we've had the same archetype, Jaden Higgins, meet Luther Burden. Luther Burden, meet Jaden Higgins. Sean Tucker, meet Bashal Tootin. Bashal Tootin, meet Sean Tucker. Like it's the same archetype that we've been talking about. So I think a lot of the same theories and practices apply here, but there's going to be some added context. For Sean Tucker, he has this big game. He has this game against the Bills run defense, who has just not been good throughout the entire year. And then we've got Bucky Irving practicing. It's another one of these things. We don't know if he's actually going to be back. So Dave, with Sean Tucker, you've got him as your 7th player. I've got him as my 6th. Honestly, I should probably just have him as my 7th if we're going to be honest, because I think I like Jaden Higgins better here. I always just tend to lean running backs. Sean Tucker, any interest in him as a waiver wire option this week?
We saw this last year, right? Like Sean Tucker had that huge blow up game that just kind of came out of nowhere. It was unpredictable. It happened. And then there was like nothing for the rest of the season. So we have seen this song and dance before. I do think that once Bucky Irving is back, the role is going to be his. And I really think that there's going to be no usage for Sean Tucker once Bucky Irving is back. Then we're going to see Bucky Irving. We're going to see Rachaad White kind of go into that role as the passing down back. And I think Sean Tucker gets completely put to the back burner here. I think, though, what we have seen is that Sean Tucker is better in the lead role. Like when he gets a rhythm going, like he is a better between the tackles runner than Rachaad White. So I think what you're doing with Sean Tucker is picking him up and stashing him in the event that Bucky Irving can't return or that he re-injures himself or misses some time. But I don't think there's any standalone value here with Sean Tucker. It is just 100% contingent upside.
Sean Tucker, like coming out of college, very much he and Chase Brown are similar dudes where they didn't test well. They're a little undersized, but man, once they get going, they've got a great rhythm. You put them out in space, they can make guys miss. They look so much faster on the field than they actually time. There's all these. Sean Tucker's just like a lot thicker. Like he's Chase Brown, who's just been doing neck exercises. I don't know. Jaden Higgins, though.
Bucky Irving is another one too. That like bombed the combine, and then like you can't watch Bucky Irving run the ball and say that he's not a good athlete, but like he didn't have good athletic testing. And I think what that tells me is that, Jason Licht and the rest of the Bucks front office there don't care about athletic testing. Like they're going to trust the film and those are the guys that they go after.
Yeah, man, Bucky Irving, he's just so good in space. Like that's it. Like if you're going to watch film, you're going to see that's exactly what it is, especially in that Oregon offense he came out of. Jaden Higgins, the other player in this tier that we're talking about, wide receiver for the Houston Texans. We're finally seeing a role grow for him. The problem is that it's on the Texans. And we don't know how good this offense can actually be, but it does seem like they're finding their stride here now with rookies and young players kind of taking over the reins here with, ironically, with CJ Stroud out of the lineup. So Jaden Higgins, as exciting as it is, I do worry we hit the bumps and bruises again when CJ Stroud gets back into the lineup. Just this offense also not being all that great. There's some excitement there, but that's why I keep them a tier lower than the Packers and Bears wide receivers that we have on here earlier, because it's the Texans, and they also have another rookie wide receiver, Jalen Noel, and they have Christian Kirk, and they have a lot of guys that are going through this rotation here.
Yeah, and I like Jaden Higgins a lot. Like we talked about him a lot this offseason, like one of my favorite rookies coming in. I'm still keeping a light on for him long term, but the problem is like he's still a part-time player. We were hoping that he would just be, getting 100% of the snaps, playing opposite Nico Collins, and it hasn't really happened. Last week he only ran routes on 65% of the passing plays. Like you look at it, Nico Collins is running 42 routes and Jaden Higgins is running 27. So it's like Nico Collins is the only full-time receiver here. And then there's just kind of this rotation of Jaden Higgins and Christian Kirk and Jalen Noel. And then we even get some Xavier Hutchison and some other guys in there. So I like Jaden Higgins, and I think that there is big play upside, but very similar to Luther Burden, like the snaps just aren't there. And it's going to be tough for him to find a fantasy relevant role without his role on the field growing substantially.
All right, let's go down to the next tier. This is our final tier, our fifth tier, where we've got Michael Wilson. This is all wide receivers, by the way. Michael Wilson, wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals, which I know some of you are like, what? He was incredible this week. We'll talk about it. A.D. Mitchell, Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver for the New York Jets, and Tyrell Shavers, who, man, he is the second highest trending player on Sleeper right now. We see this so often where everyone gets really excited for this one guy. They're like, oh, none of my league mates know him. They become the hottest trending player, and then the next week it just goes away. So Dave, out of these three, I mean, it's very possible all of these guys just go away. A.D. Mitchell didn't even have a very good game, but the idea here is he was getting targeted. He was getting open. He was dropping passes though. We got Tyrod Taylor starting. I think he's my favorite out of these three because
Same.
Michael Wilson is sort of on that ticking clock here. When does Marvin Harrison Jr. get back? He's also probably not available in a lot of leagues, only available in 61% of leagues. Tyrell Shavers, just a fun name to say. And he had a big performance. It felt like we needed to talk about him over in Buffalo.
That Terrell Shavers thing is fluky. Like this isn't a guy that like they called up that had a big game. He's been a full-time receiver all year. It's just we never know where the targets are going in a Josh Allen offense on any given week. This week they found Terrell Shavers, which is weird because like we get the Keanu Coleman inactive, and then they're like, Josh Palmer's coming back from IR. Gabe Davis is back in the lineup. We want to see what we've got with these guys. We want to see what we've got in McCole Hardman. What do? They focus on Terrell Shavers, who's been with the team running.
Does that tell you something though?
This season.
Like just for the sake of conversation here, if they bring in Gabe Davis, they bring in McCole Hardman, they bring back Josh Palmer off of injury, and they deactivate Keon Coleman, is that telling you anything about a potential role here for Shavers, or we're just going to chalk this up to dumb luck this week?
I think it's kind of a fluke. And like so much of his production was on like that big 40-yard touchdown catch, which is awesome. Like, I love receivers that can catch big touchdown bombs. Like not everybody has that in their wheelhouse, but that was a play where he was just like wide open, got hit in the back of the end zone. So I'm not really buying into the Terrell Shaver stuff. I think what we've seen over the entire season is probably telling us a lot more than what we saw in this random game where Josh Allen scored 6 touchdowns. So, I get that he's trending, but I'm not really buying into that. And Adonai Mitchell is the one that intrigues me the most. And he was cooking Christian Gonzalez out there, like just consistently getting open. He just has feet for hands and everything bounce off of his hands. Like he'd get wide open, like looks like he's going to have this big play and then just out of his hands. Like we saw multiple times, like that. Some of them were errant throws. Some of them were drops. Some of them were kind of somewhere in that gray area where they weren't perfectly placed, but they still hit him in the hands. I do think that with Tyrod Taylor out there, we're just going to see a better passing environment as a whole. And if A.D. Mitchell is operating as the team's primary receiver with Garrett Wilson on IR, I mean, you look at the rest of the guys out there, it's like guys I haven't even heard of. Like just like these random no-name players out here, these NPC
creative players,
NFL players, are just like running around catching passes in the Jets. Like A.D. Mitchell should be the wide receiver one in this offense. I think we're going to see a little boom from Mason Taylor as well, but not a guy that I'm like clamoring to pick up in like your 10-team leagues with 5 bench spots. But I think in your deeper leagues, A.D. Mitchell is definitely worth a look just because he is kind of the last man standing. He's like the only receiver that has any talent in this room right now.
Is the Justin Fields experiment over in New York? Tyrod Taylor is reported as the starter now.
At
I
least Aaron
can't
Glenn told us
imagine.
on Monday and didn't wait until Saturday afternoon, hiding those cards.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't even think he said it. It got reported, and then he's like, yeah, okay, you got me. I just like you can't bench Justin Fields again and then bring him back again and snap, 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 snap. I think it's over.
Right.
I think it's Tyrod for the rest of the year. So I think we're going to find out a lot about this Jets offense in the first Tyrod Taylor game. Who is he going to target most? What is he going to be doing? I do think the offense just looks a little smoother. Like there's actually a passing game when Tyrod is out there. So just something to consider. That's why I think both of us like AD Mitchell the best out of this tier. Well, Dave, that's the top 10 players we're looking at on the waiver wire this week. There are other players that we didn't mention, guys that you should be looking out for, Dave. Like I know you asked me before, what about Trey Tucker and Trey Benson? And I can't think of a third Trey. I just wanted to throw one out there. But a lot of those guys
Trey
are
McBride. He's not available in any leagues either.
Sure. Yeah, he's not available. Those guys are heavily rostered, but if they are available, obviously go and double check your waiver wire for that, and do the thing that we love to do, which is check and see who people have been dropping. There was probably people who dropped Alec Pierce this past week because of the bye week, and he could be out there on your waiver wire. We're not talking about him this week because he's heavily rostered everywhere. But let's do this. We always like to do our QB streamers and defense streamers. We've got 3 QB streamers and 4 defense streamers for this week, Dave. And I want to get your favorite of the 3. At quarterback, we've got Jacoby Brissett going up against Jacksonville, Bryce Young against the San Francisco 49ers, and then Joe Flacco versus the New England Patriots. Do you have a favorite amongst these 3 that you'd be going with here in week 12? You okay?
Sorry. Yeah. It's
Did
gonna
you
be Jacoby
almost?
Brissett, but I don't feel good about it.
I
Like,
gotta say, I don't hate it.
yeah. I mean,
He's been top
did you see,
12
like, how many
in every
records
start.
he broke? Like, he set the all-time completion record, the all-time NFL completion record for the most completions in a game. Only quarterback in NFL history to attempt more than 50 passes and complete over 80% of them. It's not going to happen every week. Like, he's not just going to keep throwing for 450 yards, but it's been there. And if Marvin Harrison Jr. is back, we've seen Trey McBride looking good. Now
The crazy thing is he did it without his best receiver.
I know. Well, I think Trey McBride's the best receiver, the best wide receiver.
Receiver, yes, not
But
pass
even
catcher.
like just turning Michael Wilson into a 15 catch, 185 yard guy. Like, this is a franchise that has had Larry Fitzgerald, DeAndre Hopkins, Anquan Bolden, and now you've got Michael Wilson. It's like holding all of these records for the franchise. Just wild. Yeah, I did not expect this to happen, but Jacoby Brissett, he's looked darn good.
He's been a top 12 quarterback in
Yeah.
every single start that he's had this year. And I'm trying to look it up so I can see exactly the games. Dave, let's see. Over the past few weeks, it was quarterback 4, quarterback 10, quarterback 10, quarterback 12, quarterback 7. He has thrown 2 touchdowns in every single game. This was the first week that he really looked, I don't want to say human, but like he looked a little rough. He threw a couple of interceptions. By the way, he had a rushing touchdown back 2 weeks ago against Dallas. So like Jacoby Brissett, there's so many worse options that you could have as starting quarterback. And some of them are just the more comfortable names. But I think I like Jacoby Brissett going up against Jacksonville this week the most out of any of these guys. Let's go over to the defense streamers that we're looking at for this week. And we got 4 here. Okay. So these are funny. The Raiders versus the Browns, and then the Browns versus the Raiders.
Yes.
Both of these going against each other. Man, it's going to be just a defensive slugfest here. I'd say obviously Raiders going up against Shadur Sanders starting for the Browns this week.
Shadur
Yeah,
bad. Yeah.
That's an easy one.
Was
That's
it like
an easy one.
4 for 17 with a pick and 2 sacks, I think was his final stat line. Yeah, I'm firing up any defense that's going up against that.
I'm all for let's give players time. I am all for let's be understanding and humanize players, and we should. That doesn't mean that it's unlikely that Shadur Sanders will play bad again this week. It's just something to bet on when you're looking at the defense to stream. Watching the game last night and how often Max Crosby was getting to Dak Prescott and creating pressure on him, the quarterback hurries on Dak Prescott from Max Crosby were absolutely insane. They were having to use running backs, extra linemen, tight ends to come and chip and get Max Crosby out of there. If he's creating any kind of pressure on Shadur Sanders, we're going to be looking at a very, very rough game for the Cleveland Browns.
And that's why we also like the Raiders, because their offensive line is terrible, and we know that the Browns pass rush is very good. I mean, I don't even know how the Raiders it's unbelievable how bad their offensive line is. Like, it is so bad. They can't
The
pass block. They
team,
can't run block. It's awful.
the team, like there's such an incredible malpractice. Are we seeing Tom Brady be sort of the Michael Jordan now of the
Yeah.
NFL? Where
Oh,
like
for
these
sure.
guys
Yeah.
come in and decide to run organizations, and the organization just absolutely sucks at the sport they play.
hmm
I
Yeah.
mean, it's nuts.
'Cause
By
they
the way, that's a
expect everyone to do what they did, and that's not the way it works. Yeah, I'm looking right now. Our Matt Batanti, who does his offensive line rankings, he has Las Vegas at 29th out of 32 in run
surprised he didn't
blocking.
put them at 33.
Well, for pass blocking, they're 32nd. So they're 29th in run blocking and 32nd in pass blocking, which grades out to be the worst offensive line in football.
Not good, Bob. Not good. Two other defenses to look at, by the way, this week. Jaguars defense going up against Arizona. Arizona, weirdly enough, over the last 4 weeks have been giving up the most points to opposing defenses. Just Sack City back there for Jacoby
Mhm.
Brissett. And this is kind of a reach, but I think it's
No,
worth it.
I don't think it's worth it. I don't think this is a reach at all. This is a good
Okay.
defense.
Yeah. No, I was going to, the last one I'm going to talk about.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay. Saints
Michael Penix
defense. Saints
Yeah.
defense going up against Kirk Cousins. I know that there's a little bit of a fugazi here of the Atlanta Falcons not giving up a lot of points to opposing DSTs. That was with Michael Penix. That was a very different time, and those were against very different opponents. Saints defense, a good defense, okay defense, an above average defense. Going up against Kirk Cousins, we're looking at a potentially multi-sack game, multi-interception game, and especially if Drake London is out. You got to imagine there's going to be a lot of forced passes and focus on guys like Darnell Mooney, Kyle Pitts. The defense is pretty much going to know where the ball is going.
Yeah, and I'm trying to look it up right now, and I'm struggling for some reason. But we talked so much about we wouldn't say Miami is a good defense, but there was that one game where we talked about like how did Miami bottle up Bijan Robinson, and then I remembered because Kirk Cousins was starting that game. Like Bijan Robinson couldn't even get going against the worst run defense in the NFL.
Well,
That's
I think
how bad
Kirk came
Cousins is.
in that game. I
Right,
think Penix left injured. Yeah.
right, yeah. So I'm sorry, he didn't start, but like that was the Kirk Cousins game. Like Kirk Cousins, not the player he was in the Minnesota system, whether it's the Achilles or the age or the system, whatever it is, he has looked horrendous since he joined the Falcons. So yeah, I'm like, I'm more than happy to fire up the Saints against the Falcons this week.
Kirk Cousins has thrown one touchdown over his last 8 appearances.
Oof.
These are not full games, but is over his last 8 appearances. He has thrown one touchdown and 3 interceptions. There we are. Like there's no rushing upside to Kirk Cousins. This is, yeah. I actually think the Saints might be the fun defense to go and grab this week because everyone is going to be rushing to go grab the Raiders defense up against Shador because that was the one that caught a lot of eyeballs. I kind of like these, like going out and grabbing Saints defense, getting AD Mitchell and doing all these for like $1 here, $1 there, grab a Jaden Higgins for $1, doing some of these like kind of low key moves and then really go out and put a ton of your money on guys like Bashal Tutin, Emmanuel Wilson, Chris Rodriguez up at the top.
Yep.
Well, Dave, we did it. Week 12 waiver wire pickups for all of you. Let us know in the comments what you think, players that you're going to be valuing a little bit higher. Guys, we didn't put high enough in the rankings. Players we missed in this episode. Let us know in the comments down below. And we're going to be back again tomorrow with the players to stash for the fantasy playoffs. And Dave, if I'm not mistaken, we might be doing a little bit of planning right here on air. That might end up just being our last trade episode because trade deadlines are here for fantasy football leagues. So that's going to be our last trade episode of the season. And then Thursday, we'll be back again to give you guys our starts and sleepers for week 12. We are just so close to the fantasy playoffs, guys. This is the time to lock in. Make sure you're joining us for each and every one of these shows. As always, I want to thank everybody for watching and listening all the way through. For myself, for Dave, we'll see you next time. Adios.